Good to see you. Look at that map. What you see right in the center of it is all the petrochemical areas. So that brings up the elusive energy independence. President after president, we've been talking about how we're going to achieve energy independence.
Okay.
So what concrete steps do we really take to really have energy independence? Everything seems to revolve around the
There's a whole lot of revolve around that. Actually, my personal opinion is about to cut down the quota. I'm not going to send the money to the companies that hate us. All over in the eastern, like the Saudi area. And we ought to be. And how long have you heard this? You said,
well, you can go back to Johnson, maybe Kennedy.
And they say, gosh, if you started drilling now, it would take how many years? If you started building refineries, if you started drilling, how many years would it be before we got more online? 10 years. Really? And what if we'd have done that 10 years ago? What if we had started 20 years ago?
What can we do now?
It's called good policy. It's called, you're seeing a nationwide deal on fracking for natural gas. Texas is now to natural gas what Saudi Arabia is to oil. And so we want predictable, good, common sense regulations to get our energy industry moving again. And we need to be thinking of all forms of energy. We really do. But you let the free market economy set. You don't give $500 million to a company that goes bankrupt. You're playing favorites because you know when the government does that, they're picking winners and losers. And they shouldn't be doing that. When the technology's there, when the know-how's there, when that product is affordable, American companies, entrepreneurs will produce it and Americans will buy it. And if Americans risk their capital and they make a bad investment, then they go bankrupt. Nobody guaranteed our industry. We struggled for 2 or 3 years. I could have folded, thrown in the towel and said, you know what, I'm going back to my parents. This is too hard. I hung in there. Let people risk their capital. Let them do it, not the government. So we need to be drilling here. There's no pump stations, probably 2 years old. Drill might pay less. We need to be giving tax credits to people that invest their money when they risk their capital. Not higher taxes on those that make money necessarily. Those people, there's 47% of Americans that say don't pay anything to the system, no taxes. We need to be adding them. We need to be getting them off the welfare, creating those jobs, making it easier. Thank you, sir. Making it easy for companies to create work, giving them the tax incentive, and then getting more people paying into the system and off the government does. And you'll get a better energy policy. And when it's affordable, when it's what's the word, profitable, they will develop those new technologies. But let's make it that we can drill here and drill now, pay less. Let's don't come back in 10 years and say, you know what? We said 10 years ago that nothing would happen. At least 10 years if we did it. Get it going. Get it going.
What happens to all the money that the oil companies bank now? I hear about how much profit they have. And I know that they can invest a lot of that in their research and in their exploration. And I know that I went to school with all these petroleum engineers at A&M. My roommate was a petroleum engineer. So we knew then that every time the prices went up, the number of rigs went up. I see that today. You look in the Chronicle.
Well, here's what would be an interesting figure to have, Jim, and I've heard it, but I can't tell you what it is. How many, when investors go out and invest their capital, and drill a hole, an oil drilling rig, and to look for all the drill down, there's a certain percentage of dry holes. They fail. What is that percentage? I don't know. I've heard it, but I don't remember. It's 37%, 40. I don't remember what it is.
A lot less today. They have so much technology now.
They've got good technology. But they're risking their investment capital, and they're gambling to some extent because as the price of a barrel of oil goes down, what happens to their profitability? And so they have to be careful about what they invest their money. So if you've got the federal government tax on a gallon of gasoline, whatever that is, it's 20 or 30 cents per gallon, and if oil companies make it less than 5%, maybe it's whatever it turns out to be per gallon. The federal government is actually getting more taxes per gallon than the oil companies make. There's something inherently wrong with that scenario. They're investing their capital. They're taking the risk. They're hiring people. They're creating jobs. They're securing the land. They're doing all that's necessary. And whatever percentage of it is that they fail. And yet the federal government sits back and does nothing except issue regulations and issue tax laws. And they get that high of a percentage. We ought to be making it easy on them to drill, let them do their job, let them pay their fair share of taxes. And then I think we'll get our energy industry moving again. They need to be encouraged and not over-regulated.
You said you were the only one in this primary that has legislative experience.
I'm the only state legislator in the race.
Have any of the others served any kind of public office that you know of?
One of them was on city council for 6 years. I spent 6 years on city council. You bet. But I have to say, and of course I'm very, very biased, that the School of Hard Knocks, and building my business for 31 years, having a family of 3 kids and 4 grandkids, and being actively involved in my community, not just one county, but 2 counties, large way, and really she's from the 3rd county. Nobody has that kind of width or depth of experience. I'm obviously biased, but I have to believe that counts for something.
How do you feel about the infrastructure? You know, I look at the highways and stuff, and of course we all use them, but then I used to drive a lot to Dallas.
Dallas?
Yeah. And all these Walmart trucks gone. And it occurred to me that without these highways, Walmart wouldn't exist. You know? Intercoastal Canal here in this area where I grew up. Just going to Oliver and watch the ducks go and stuff, and it seems like it's real important. How do we? I got to drive home.
Randy, thank you for coming down.
Okay.
Bob Center.
Sure, Bob.
I was with my friends Jim Schumer and Steve Matera.
There you go.
Saturday night at the Heart Ball in Galveston. So I know they're supporters of yours as we are. So good luck. We're right behind you. Okay.
Keeping our infrastructure up. As an engineer,
Have you been
seems to be.
going along with other candidates?
Well, again, that's one of those areas where the federal government has a limited role per the Constitution. More theirs is about the Commerce Clause in the Constitution, where they're able to.
I wonder why you're taking so many notes.
State commerce from state to state.
I'd rather write it down and not use
But
it
for
than
that, I think
forget what happened later.
we ought to let states do their own job, allocate the money, let them do it most effectively to know. And when you see states competing for contracting services or jobs or bids, where they will design it and perform it that's best for their state, then they get the companies in to build that. The states will manage that money a lot better than the federal government.
Do you think the states ought to take care of all the highways?
Well, I think the states, there's federal money involved in the interstate system as designed by Eisenhower. Then if it's going to be regulated by the federal government, they need to be able to pay for it. But they don't want to over-regulate it. And the states ought to get the money with the fewest amount of strings attached. The first station I was in the legislature, the federal government, the EPA, was talking about taking over our air quality permitting from TCEQ. It's called the Flex Permit Rule. They've been using it for 18 years. And I said, you know what? Under the Clean Air Act, I think 1972, the Congress passed under Nixon, they said that the EPA had 18 months to rule on the state's air permitting process, whether it was acceptable or not. They never ruled on Texas submitted theirs. They never ruled on Texas's permit process. Texas had been using it either for 16 or 18 years. And finally, after that length of time, let's just say 16 years, they came back and said, you're not doing it right, we're going to take it over. Well, really? You never ruled on it. We kept submitting it, you kept approving it, you kept I mean, they didn't approve it, they didn't reject it. They just let it go forward. And now they've got a really, what I would call an overactive EPA. Now they want to take over our flex permitting process. Part of our discussion in the House was, I said, why don't we just tell them no? They go stick their nose in the air and blow their brains out. And they said, oh, if you do that, Randy, they'll shut down their highway funding. I said, okay, let's look at that. How much money do we get highway funding from that? How much money do we send there? Why don't we just tell them, okay, that's fine. You quit sending us your highway funding, we'll quit sending our gasoline tax money. Let's see how they like that track.
I guess that goes a real central point of my original question was there seems to be everywhere a lack of funding now, and yet we've got, the world runs on infrastructure, so even at the city level. So, I want to be able to flush my toilet, and I want to be able to turn on the tap and get water.
Sure.
And, so I want to be able to drive the state highway. So when there's a lack of funds, how do we keep our infrastructure?
The government we've been paying for, Jim, is bloated at every level. Federal, state, county, city, local. We've been overtaxed, we've been paying too much, and it's finally catching up with us. We need less bureaucracy, we need less costly government, less regulations. When practical. I'm a conservative Republican. I'm a business owner, as you know, listening to my background. I've got kids and grandkids, as you know, listening to my background. I don't want dirty air and dirty water. I'm thinking all my grandkids breathing in smog and carcinogens and things and drinking water that's not safe. Of course I don't. But I think before we impose burdensome regulations, over-regulations on industry and people and states, whether it's a water system, whatever air quality system, whatever it is, we can't afford necessarily all those regulations. We have put bureaucracy in place, and we really can't afford it. I was in Washington, D.C. in the Environmental Reg Committee hearing in 2009, probably, and I'm hearing the EPA talk about they want to permit farms and ranches because of greenhouse gases, global warming, because manure makes methane gas, quite frankly. They want to permit farms with 200 head of cattle, pigs, horses, goats, chickens, whatever, and I'm like, really? And I'm in the taxi driving back to the airport, Jim, and I drive by this Environmental Protection Agency building in the United States. The building is huge and massive. It's tall. It's, I don't know, 2 blocks deep and 2 blocks wide. And I looked at that building and I went, oh my God. I wonder what the carbon footprint is on that building. How much energy does that building take? How much are we paying for wages and salaries and benefits, insurance and retirement and vacation? It's got to be a tremendous amount. And I'm thinking, and they want to permit farming. We're paying those guys to jack with our lives. You realize how ludicrous that is? We can't afford to keep doing That's a long answer.
I think there's enough,
to your short question. So,
do you think there's enough waste to be able to afford what we need if we could just cut the waste?
I'd sure like to try it. I'd sure like to get less regulations, let the states do it, give them the federal funding, with less. Look, Texans in Texas, they want Andy's one. Will's one, he's an important Texan. Are you out of here?
I'm out of here, but thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. Let Texans be responsible for their infrastructure. If you give the money to us, we'll do it efficiently and effectively. Don't send the money with all kinds of overburdensome regulations and strings attached. Don't make it so expensive and so time-consuming and overregulated that we can't afford it. In my personal opinion, that's They're worried about, I don't know if y'all saw Jerry Patterson, the great land commissioner. They're worried about drilling out in West Texas some kind of lizard. And he was on, was it Fox News about, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, time just kind of escaped him. But he said the EPA is worried about some darn reptile out there. They've got reptile dysfunction. yeah. You know, like, come on. We're talking about creating jobs. We're talking about a little lizard that some bird eats regularly, keeps them in check, and does all that stuff. And they're wanting to shut down an industry. What about the people who are losing their homes because there's no work out there? They're losing farms and ranches and homes because of the economy. Why don't we be concerned at least as much about them as we are some little lizard? It's just there's no common sense in the governments saying that. That's my opinion. Too many regulations. Well, good.
Well, I guess I'm running out of things to talk about. I might catch you again somewhere. Where you?
RandyWeber.org.
Yeah, Andy and Randy.
Shoot that to me, will you?
Yeah, is this, is that a good email address to contact?
Ben, you betcha.
Yeah, okay.
You betcha. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure, me.